Hi, I'm Cass Mullane.
I'm Liz Kettle.
And we are Creativity Cubed. So today we're going to talk about perfectionism.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about the A+. Oh, wait a second. What the heck?
It's crooked.
It's crooked.
It's
Okay.
still crooked.
We don't have to keep that. But
Okay.
yeah, okay, anyway. So perfectionism. Chris, you're going to edit that out? Oh, never mind. Okay, perfectionism. Let me read you a definition, a psychological definition of perfectionism. It's a personality trait that's characterized by a person striving for flawlessness and setting excessively high performance standards, accompanied by an overly self-critical evaluation and concern about others' evaluations. So what we have here is a little top 10 list.
Do the top 10 list.
In honor of David Letterman,
Yes.
of course.
So number 10. So these are symptoms of perfectionism.
Perfectionism,
in your
okay.
life. If you have any of these. Number 10, over preparing. I don't know anything about that.
Number 9, depression. Oh, that's not me, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
Number 8, can't accept help.
Number 7, setting unattainable standards or goals like A+.
Number 6, using excuses such as, oh, it'll cost too much to do it right.
Number 5, tendency to be eager to please.
Number 4, highly critical of yourself and others.
Number 3, tending to take things personally.
Number 2, big one, fear of launching and fear of failure.
And the number 1 symptom of perfectionism is you hate that we only gave you 9. Okay, so let's talk about some of those things. Over preparing, that's a perfect one to start with.
That's a really good one for me
Yeah.
because everybody knows I like to research, and I use that as a crutch.
Yeah.
All the time. It's like when I'm nervous about something, I don't want to start. I'm just like, I got to research that a little bit more. I don't know enough about that. I got to have all my facts straight.
Yeah.
I am a recovering perfectionist.
Recovering perfectionist, yeah. And for me, having been an athlete, I know that preparation is super important, but there is a downside to over-preparing, and that things don't happen the way
Especially
you expect
as an
them to.
athlete, over-preparing, you
injure
don't perform as
yourself,
well.
you don't perform as well, so over-preparing is a major issue.
You don't notice that so much when you're doing research. You just get more information to go
The
through.
time passes, yeah, there is
over-preparing. I think a lot of people do that.
Yeah.
And you need to be prepared, don't get us wrong.
Right, you
need
absolutely
to
have to prepare, yes.
But if that could be a crutch.
Well, and if it keeps you from doing anything else,
Right.
because you're preparing.
Right.
Okay. Depression, that's a very serious one.
very serious.
You know, because if you don't measure up to your own, I almost said redonkulously high standards, but I can say that because I used to have super high unattainable standards, but if you don't measure up, then you are setting yourself up for issues with depression.
Or if you're sure that you can never succeed, you can never meet your parents' expectations or your spouse's expectations, and it's serious. You can really...
Yeah, or if you're worried that other people just aren't going to approve of whatever you're doing or think it's good enough. Here's a big one, can't accept help. There's a difference between asking for help and getting help you don't want. It's not valuable help, but there's also the difference between you can't accept help if someone offers you help, or if you can't even ask for help.
Right, because you're afraid they won't do it right. They won't do it your way.
They won't do it your way,
Do it
exactly.
right. Yeah,
exactly. And that's a challenge because obviously all of us need help at some point. We all have to come up with a team, a group, of peers and cohorts that are there for us, just like we're there for them. And if you never ask for help or you certainly don't accept help, they're going to fall away. That's just how it happens.
And then
it's very sad, but that's
you end
what
up
happens.
more alone and depressed because then you feel like you're not plugged into the community.
Right.
So it's bigger than just that.
Yeah. Here's a big one for both of us, actually, setting unattainable standards and goals. So the challenge with setting an unattainable standard and goal is you can't get there.
You can't get there.
You just can't get there. It's not possible.
Yeah.
But you still set it like you're going to be able to. So you set yourself up for failure after failure after failure.
And it's frustrating, and you end up down talking yourself.
Well,
all
and
the
you're
time.
stressed, and you're mean to people around you because you're not happy with yourself. That spreads in a just big giant circle.
Yep.
And again, from athletics. You set these must be able to do this standard, and you can't get there. That means you're never never
you're
gonna be
never good
happy.
enough. You're
Yeah, and there's
never good
nothing wrong with striving for excellence.
Right.
That's
That's a
what
whole
you do.
different thing.
That's huge. That's what you learn to do is you strive for excellence, and you always go after doing the best you can do.
Yeah.
That's worth it. But setting such a high standard that you'll never achieve, I mean, you got to be challenged, and you got to have some excellence expectations. But those are good enough because they do push us.
You also have to think about who's making the expectations.
Right.
Who's setting those rules? Are you really setting those rules, or are you looking at someone else's expectations? Like, you think so-and-so has these expectations that are here, when maybe in reality their expectations are here. And you can you can achieve this, but you've decided that because you didn't communicate properly, that their expectations are higher than achievable.
Or also when you're setting your own expectations, you have to challenge yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't settle. Let me rephrase that. You absolutely can settle, but why? Challenge yourself, make the expectations of excellence present, and it then becomes kind of a game, and it becomes, instead of like, oh my God, I didn't get the A+ on the report card, I only got an A.
Got an A-.
You got an A-?
Yes.
When? Oh, I'm just kidding. I can't see you as not. Anyway, overachiever right here. Liz, overachiever. Okay. Anyway, it's really important that you make sure you set yourself some very reasonable but challenging expectations, and then go after them.
Go after 'em.
Don't be afraid to go after them. Okay, what's next on the list here?
Using excuses like it will cost too much.
Or my hair's not perfect, I can't go on camera.
Or I need to lose 10 pounds before I do this
before I do anything,
or
right.
buy the next thing.
Or I don't have the best tube of paint. I don't have the perfect thread.
I can't be an artist because I don't have the right tools.
Right.
And you can start with anything.
Yeah, and there comes a point where redonkulous. I'm sorry, I don't know where that word's coming from, but redonkulous.
Yeah.
And yes, you always want to try to strive for excellence. And yes, there are going to be times when you don't have enough money to do the perfect thing, and you don't have the tools to do the perfect thing, or the personnel.
The flip side is you come up with something innovative
Even better.
and creative
Yeah.
because you didn't have the proper tools.
Right.
You created something that would work.
And
maybe even better than what you
And
thought.
isn't that better?
Oh, it's
I mean, to me, that's so much better when you challenge yourself. Okay, I don't have $1,000 to rent a studio to do a video, but I'm going to figure out how to make that happen. What a great challenge.
Yeah.
And, that's part of being innovative, being creative. That's who we are. We're creative. So come up with a creative solution. Don't wait for all the stars to align, because it doesn't happen. It just doesn't
Mercury's
happen.
in retrograde right now. And
Well,
here we are.
So what? Okay, moving on.
Tendency to be eager to please.
Yeah.
You not so much.
Not so much.
Me.
But you're like, whatever.
I tend to be eager to please other people. At least it's been my history.
Right, your history.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And some of that's lack of confidence.
Yeah.
But it's also that A+. You want everybody to like you. You want everybody to think you're really good.
And the box is checked. You got that A+.
You got the A+.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And eager to please. Like I have a reference with athletics that I just have. You want your coaches to approve of your performance. You want your peers to accept you and want you on their team or whatever. And there is that, and you have to do well.
Right.
To get on that
team. You have to try really
right.
hard. You have to always be trying to be better.
But you don't have to be a perfectionist, because
Right.
if you strive for excellence, if you give yourself the challenges and you go after them, things happen.
Yeah.
And then you become part of that group. You don't have to be perfect to be part of a team, for example. Whether it's an athletic team or a business team or an art team. I mean, we've got a project coming up called The Feminine Line. It's an art it's a show that's coming up shortly. And that, our natural tendency is we really want to produce excellent work.
Right.
We don't want to produce perfect work, because we'll never get started, we'll never get done.
We'll never start.
Yeah.
Because if it has to be perfect, I'll just be like,
Yeah, it can't.
white page.
Yeah.
What do I do?
Right,
How do I
the
make
white
this
page.
perfect?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I can't do this possibly.
Yeah. And then what we got, number 4 here, being highly critical of yourself and others. Now, we already do that as artists, and obviously it happens all across all industries. But we're hard on ourselves, and we're very highly critical of ourselves. But if we're so highly critical, I mean, there will never be a nice job, Cass, if I'm a perfectionist, because I'll never be perfect.
Right.
So I'll never get the joy, the celebration of doing something really good.
Yeah. And I think that one of the key parts is that we're really critical of other people.
Oh, that
or not,
spreads.
I don't mean we are really critical of other people,
Yeah,
because we
we
try
are.
not to be. But when perfectionists are very critical of other people because nobody's good enough. And
Yeah,
that's why you
and
can't even
nobody's
ask
good
them for
enough.
help. Nothing's good enough,
Right.
nobody's good
It's
enough.
the wrong blue.
Right,
You know?
exactly.
So, and that then drives people away, which then, I mean, that's like a self-fulfilling, nasty
Yeah, it is.
cycle.
It is.
And we try to avoid it, obviously. We tend to take things personally. Yeah,
because
that
it's,
sort of happens.
Yeah, when you're a perfectionist, obviously
Anything.
everything's about you and
Right.
your
Any-
ability to achieve it or not achieve it. So you take everything personally.
Right, and any comment gets twisted.
Right.
Any comment
makes
which may
it-
be harmless
Right.
can get twisted by
Oh, and everybody's had that happen to them where you said
Yeah.
something innocent and that person took it really personally.
And your head comes off.
Yeah, it's like, don't kill me.
like, sorry, I'll
and for
step away
artists
from the
in
perfectionist.
particular, critiques.
Critiques, yeah.
It's really, you have to have good Teflon skin when you go
Right.
to critique to have people, say what they think about your work.
Well,
It's
and also when you're in a critique, you have to be prepared. So perfectionists have difficulty with critiques because they have that ridiculously high standard
Right.
that you can never achieve, and so they know they're going to get critiqued, and they know it's going to be personal, and they're setting yourself up
Yeah.
for unhappiness and failure
Yeah.
right there. And that you obviously want to minimize that
Yeah.
stuff because it's so stressful.
Yeah.
Why add the stress?
which goes right into fear of failure.
Yeah, fear of failure,
launching.
fear of
Oh my
launching.
gosh, how many
Yeah.
times have we not done something because you're afraid?
You're afraid to start.
Start.
Yeah, because it might not turn out. I mean, look
Right.
at these videos here. There's a perfect example.
Yeah.
We launched. We decided, you know what? We're just going to go for it. It's going to be one of those things.
Yep, we had a great idea,
Yep.
and we put together a team, and we went with it. We don't know what we're doing.
Yeah, we have no
we
clue.
don't have
Figured
the
it out.
perfect equipment. We don't have the perfect environment. We
Yeah.
don't have the perfect lights and wardrobe and
But-
makeup and hair.
But actually, we do.
But we did it anyway.
But we did it anyway, and that's a great example.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you've got an example right here with the perfect bird and the
The not so perfect. bird.
imperfect bird.
And this is from one of the classes I teach.
should hold it up.
And this is actually free sketching with your sewing machine. So it's a little bit scary, to say the
Yes.
least, because not only is it drawing, but it's drawing with a sewing machine.
Needle
kind of hard
on a machine.
right? And this is at one of the classes that I teach. That actually, it's this whole thing. I wrote this book, and most people. They don't get to do this one until they do this one because they don't think they can do this
What's the
one.
difference?
The difference between this one is this is traced sketching.
Oh, the lines are already
The
there?
lines are already there and
Ah.
you're tracing it. There's lots of cheater ways to make this happen.
Right.
And you can get a really perfect image.
Smooth curves,
Smooth
lines,
curves. It's
exactly like a bird.
exactly like the image you started from. This one is free sketch, so it's more like a hand pencil sketch. And I make them do this one first because they don't get any lines.
Yeah.
They get a reference photo that's here.
Yep.
And they don't have to just jump in. I teach them a few tricks to make it happen. And pretty much everybody's happy with their first or second bird. But when you look at the difference, and I know it's hard to see on camera, but this one has a lot more energy in it because it's their work. It's like their own hand drawing.
Yeah, there's souls in it. Yeah,
Right.
they
And
made
this
it.
one is
Somebody
traced.
else's job.
It's somebody else. It's traced and it's less expressionist.
Yeah.
So most of my students, though, when they come to class, they think this is what they want. The perfect
Right.
bird.
Right.
They want the perfect lines where it looks just smooth and beautiful. And afterwards, what they realize is that this one is the more artistic expression bird.
Yeah.
And it depends what you're doing. If you're doing botanical drawings, you want that
You
more
want
precision.
yeah.
So there is a place for precision, but there's also a place for not precision.
Yeah, and I think it's really important that people do recognize that we as artists, we tend to work very organically and very loosely. That's just our personal styles. But we give creds to the people who can do those perfect botanical drawings.
yeah.
I mean,
I would
that's not
love
in
to
my
do that.
my
Would
toolbox.
love to
I
do
don't
that.
know how to do
Right.
that. And there's obviously a very specific place for those. And if you have that skill, then by all means keep it sharp, practice it, do it, because you got to have that.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to have my reference, and that's done by somebody else who can do perfect, smooth,
Right.
whatevers. So
But don't let the
Exactly.
desire for this keep
keep
you
you from doing that.
this.
Yeah, because one way to get to that more perfect, that excellent
Right.
Stage is to practice.
Yeah.
And then you get
And
your
that's
skills
no matter
improved.
what.
Yeah,
no
anything.
matter what it is.
Whether you're doing your job, you got to practice
Yeah.
those skills and get really good at your job.
Yeah.
Or you're creating art or
Yeah.
whatever, playing kickball.
Right.
You know?
Right. One thing we talked about
Wait,
was
what about the top one?
the
The number one. You hate that we only gave you 9.
That's not just for you OCD folks.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
We did that on purpose. I mean, that's for people. If you were counting, and it's like, wait a minute, there's not 10.
There's
Something's
not
wrong
10.
with this.
We moved on.
Yeah.
Something else.
Yeah. So we did that on purpose because if it really bothers you, then you probably have a stronger tendency towards perfection. If you didn't even notice, then you didn't notice.
Yeah.
But we thought it was kind of funny.
Yeah.
All
We're
right.
always trying to have fun.
Okay, so one way I have dealt with perfectionism, and this happened much earlier in my life than it probably has happened with you, is with sports. And, the ideal is to, like, take golf, for example. That's a goofy sport. I play lots of sports, but golf is one. And putting. You always want to sink that first putt. That's perfect. You always want to get to the hole in regulation or shorter. But the putting is the thing I want to talk about, because I realized early on that I could not make the hole in regulation because I didn't hit it long enough. So I had to figure out, once I got there on the green, I wanted to make 1 putt or 2 at the most. So, and it is difficult, but once I released the challenge of, I have to do this, and instead I filled my head with, I am a really good putter. Mm-hmm. I relaxed. It's self-talk, and I just relaxed. But that helped me learn from sports that I can't be perfect at everything. In fact, I'm perfect at nothing, but I'm really good at a lot of stuff. And that's how I did it. It was self-talk, and I learned that early on, which was great for me. Okay, so to wrap this up a little bit, just some of the things that we think might help you with the perfectionism. Yeah. And not saying you can't strive for super excellent. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. And being a perfectionist is not necessarily the most horrible thing in the universe. It makes life more difficult. It's difficult to do business. It's difficult to do art. It's difficult to do to live with your family.
It's difficult to raise your children because they'll never
measure up.
Right, they'll never measure up, and then you've
got
a whole other set of problems.
So a couple things we came up with. First off is just strive for excellence.
Excellence is so important, and sometimes when you say you're trying not to be perfectionist, people think that you're being messy,
lazy,
and that's not the case.
Right,
totally different thing. Like when I first started working towards being less perfectionist in my work, I didn't trim my threads.
Yeah.
So I left all my threads hanging on the outside on my stitch work, and people thought that was messy and lazy, but really it was me letting go of being perfect.
Yeah, and that has now become a signature,
right,
which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
It ties right into your style, which is fun. Another thing we came up with is mastery is not the same as perfection. So you can get really good at something, whether it's a sport, a technique, an art form, a singing, a dancing, a business. You're really good at business. That doesn't make you a perfectionist. It means you're really good at what that particular thing is, and mastery is a good thing.
Right.
And you want to become really good at something. That's important these days to not, I mean, we talked a little bit earlier in another video about being a jack of all trades and the master of none, but that's not true, because you may be a jack of all trades, but there are some things you are really good at, and that's where you've
you're
got
always
mastery.
a master of a couple things, and you really just, it's the things that you're most passionate about.
Yeah, and that's what it turns out.
You really want to pursue those and be the master, and accept that mastery is
it's a good thing. Yeah,
it's
good enough. Yeah, and not saying that good enough is a low standard, because it's not.
It's not.
You should hear what our good enough is, and that's pretty darn excellent.
And you're always raising the level of good enough.
That's it.
Once you get to this
level,
there,
you
got to go to the next level.
Yeah, move it on up.
Yeah.
And then the last and probably one of the most important things is give yourself permission to be a beginner, to make mistakes, to mess it up. I mean, give yourself permission to do that.
You've got to be open to failure.
Yep. And from failure, that's where you learn.
Right. There isn't one amazing inventor in the history of our country that didn't fail a billion times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we did it again. Okay, so there's our summation for you, and it is important to give yourself a break, and more than anything else, be kind to yourself. Don't be so harsh, but still challenge yourself and strive for something really high level.
And when you're trying to overcome perfectionism, pick one thing. Don't try and change everything at one time. Like I started with leaving my threads uncut.
Hanging.
That was a big step. And then I learned to sew messy. That was another big step. So pick one thing at a time. Don't try and change everything in your life at one time, or you'll go right back to the comfort of perfectionism.
Yeah.
I didn't learn it at an early age. I am still a recovering perfectionist. It's something I struggle with all the time. And some of that for me is because I always knew I was really smart, but I could never get good grades. I got B's, C's, D's, a few F's, and very, very few A's because I had some learning disabilities, but we didn't know about that then.
Yeah.
But because I knew I was smart, I was always striving to be more perfect.
Right.
And one of the problems I had was that I wouldn't ask questions because then I looked stupid. I was afraid of looking stupid, so I wouldn't ask questions. And that was something I'm still learning, to ask questions, especially if I'm in a group situation where I don't really know people and I'm uncomfortable. I won't say, what does that mean?
Right.
Or can you tell me more about that? Because I'm afraid I'll look stupid.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to be stupid. So, it's one of those things that some of us are struggling with.
Combat it all the time.
Yeah. And you just have to take those chances. Every time you take a chance and you take a leap, it gets easier and easier every single time to get over that perfectionism, because so far nothing's killed me. Question today. Oh, this is good because we've been talking about sewing.
This is great. Okay, so this is from, is it Sally? Yes, Sally in Georgia. It says, I'm a quilter and I want to branch out to make some creative work. How do I break away from the desire to have perfect points? Now, perfect points is a quilting thing. It means where the lines intersect, they are exact. So if they make an X, they make a point that's perfect. So think of a bunch of triangles. They look like actual triangles. They don't look like wonky triangles. They don't have the tips cut off. Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with perfect points.
Absolutely not.
Especially if it's
integral
to your design. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So think about where you need perfection and where you need interpretation in your voice. Because if you're always going towards perfection, your voice isn't coming out. And that's what makes something art as opposed to craft.
Right. And those perfect points may be essential to that piece.
Right.
If you want to try not making perfect points, if that's what you're thinking, art is art quilting, for example, is not having perfect points. Well, art quilting can very easily be having a perfect point, but it's all about the design and the composition, and what you're trying to say with the piece.
Color,
what you're trying
mood,
to convey,
emotion,
the whole
feeling,
the whole gamut. So if you want to break away from that desire, which is what this says right here, then go and cut off a point with your stitch. Make sure it doesn't line up perfectly. Take your 1/4-inch seams and make them, one of them 3/4 of an inch.
Just whack it off with your rotary
You
cutter.
can whack it with a rotary. You can sew it crooked, and then I have this great thing I like to do is, what's the ugliest thing I can make?
Oh yes,
So
that's a great exercise.
It's a great exercise for anything.
For all of them.
That's actually
because everybody can do that.
Yeah. So an exercise you can do. I call it the ugly exercise. So you go and you make something hideous. You put things on it that don't belong together. If like sewing, you make sure the tension's messed up so it comes out all gnarly.
Yeah, and the ugliest fabrics you can find. If you're hammering wood, the nails are all crooked.
Yeah, if you're sculpting, it's got blobs instead of smooth line. I mean, make it ugly.
If you're cooking, oh my
gosh, make a mess. Make
green eggs
with salt and sugar
and ice cream.
Yeah.
Oh, make green egg ice cream. How about that? Come up with something really, really awful.
Really ugly.
And that will help you to relax and just go for the creativity.
Yeah, do ugly, make yourself laugh. That will cause the relaxation. And then go explore using what you know
Yeah.
about composition and design,
Yeah.
using what you know about, color and how you express an emotion. Use that
Yeah.
and make that part of the art piece. So that's what I have. Do you have something to
That's
add?
good. Yeah.
Okay. I'm Cass Mullane, and I want you to go out, strive for excellence, challenge yourself, and be happy where you land.
I'm Liz Kettle. Go make something ugly.